Hi, this is James, or Gravity Fail, and you're listening to Gravity Reviews, my interview show where I talk to tabletop RPG streamers and content creators about the projects they're working on. If you want to check out more of the tabletop content from me, then go ahead and check out my Patreon. Link will be below, or you can always check out a social media of your choice and look for Gravity Fail 87. That's my handle on most social medias. And today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Stacy, the director of the Ennies. We talk about the Ennies, the application process for content creators, and all the work that goes into running one of the longest running fan-based celebrations of tabletop RPGs and role-playing. So, buckle up and enjoy. Because while I was doing my research of the Ennies, not only did I think that it was really cool, and also there have been some podcasts I listened to that have been Ennie nominated. One of them was like Pink Hawk, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's also a great resource for me to go and see who is nominated and then who wins, because then I can kind of just go in and ask, like, hey, I saw that you were recently nominated. Can I interview you?
Absolutely.
Which saves me a lot of time of having to filter through, as you're probably aware, the plethora of tabletop RPG content creators of systems, podcasts, streams, and so on.
Yes. A
Which,
big industry. I don't
yeah.
realize it until you start looking into it. It's like there are so many. It's amazing. It's
Well,
amazing how much is out
and the thing I learned recently is you don't even know who's out there. Like, or you figuratively don't know, because once you start looking, you're like, wait, what? there's there's people all over. Which the first question I was going to think of as just kind of a generalized one is, how do you filter down? Because you get lots of submissions. How do you just even filter down to like your top 5 or 6?
So, how it works is we are truly fan based, and we get our submissions through a nomination process of the publishers, the creators. They go out and they submit their items. We don't go out and hunt it down. We actually have the individuals, the creators themselves, bring it to us. So anyone is welcome to submit their nomination, or I should say nomination. Anyway, so their product. We'll put it that way. And they submit their product, and the judges then spend from now until end of June of next year reviewing everything submitted. And of course, the media content is judged in the podcast category, or it kind of naturally falls into certain categories depending on what the content is. And the judges, there are 5 of them. They are elected in officially every year, so they're chosen as well by the community at large, and they narrow it down through discussion and debate and come up with the top 5. And that's how we get to our list of nominees for the awards for that year. And then we open it up to the fans, and then they vote on the 5 to get to the number 1 and number 2 of the list. And that's how we get to them.
Because you were a judge for a long time too, correct?
I was.
Yeah.
I was.
With that, because I imagine everyone kind of has a different process when they're selecting what to present to the other judges. How did you decide what to kind of bring to the table?
Sure. I spent many an hours practicing through play testing, reviewing everything that's submitted to us, listening to podcasts. Origins happens to fall right at the beginning of June, and I would download them all, and that would be my listening entertainment as we would be driving to Origins and back from Origins, to try to give everything a fair listen. And then what I would do is I would get closer, as I was listening to things, I would keep a little list for myself of, hey, I really liked what this product did by way of creativity and writing. It was just beautifully done. Not sure on the mechanics, but I'll tell you that the beautiful eloquence of the writing was there, and I'd make a note of that. And then I'd keep track throughout the year of, oh, I really like the writing on this one, and narrow it down to these are maybe my top 10. The judges would then meet every month. I mean, they start meeting immediately with whatever is submitted in and start talking about them and what they like about them. And if someone was like, well, I didn't really get the same vibe from something that you did, and I clearly am really liking a product, we'll talk about it and say, well, here's my perspective of why I liked something. And then they would say, oh, you know what? I didn't really even think about it from that way. Let me go back and take a look at it again. Same thing would happen from the other direction of, hey, I really liked this space opera game that we got. And I'm like, well, I read it, but I'm too scarred by aliens to really to really have gotten into it that far. Or maybe I was maybe my I was a bit clouded in my judgment, and I go back and look at it. So you know what? Yeah, you're right. I can totally see your point. So it's very much collaboration as well, trying to come together and go with what I think is great in certain areas, talking with the other judges on what they think is great, and truly coming to what we think are the best of the best in the end. And I was a judge. I was on the judging panel for 4 years before I took over as the business manager of the Ennies. So I've kind of seen both sides of it, and it's a challenge. I mean, being a judge is a lot of work. It's even more so now than when I was a judge. Since I was a judge, the number of submissions has doubled. So it's just it's very demanding. It's a very demanding, time-consuming process to go through all of this. It's also very rewarding. But I think that the collaboration piece is important, and being open to discussing with others, because having 5 people, you're gonna have 5 different opinions, and it's really nice to see that play out and everyone get to where they feel good, right,
Mm.
about something.
Yeah, because that was going to be to go off that a little bit. Just your view of, to me, it seems almost like an explosion of content creation with the kind of spurred on by like the newest edition of Dungeons and Dragons, but the content creators who then picked it up and then influenced a whole bunch of other people to start making their own content. How do you deal with it, or how do you manage that influx of new content? Like you said, it doubled in recent years.
It does. From the management side of the house that I'm on now, I really try to encourage submission early. Don't wait until April. The deadline is always the end of April, and it's like, don't wait. We get probably 70% of our products in the last month, and it's a lot. But we also warn the judges up until that point that, hey, this is coming. This is coming. Make sure you're not scheduling vacation, because if you can help it, because we don't want you to be stressed over it either. But so that's one thing that we do is, and we also make sure that um, the judges are staying on top of products as they're getting them throughout the year. We have monthly meetings where we go over, hey, what has everyone received? If you haven't received this yet, maybe we need to look in. Maybe there's something going on with the shipping. We keep track of that just to make sure that it's easier on the judges and on the publishers, that everything's being received appropriately. Shipping has become a bit of a challenge in the last couple years, so we want to make sure we're on top of that as well. And then so things are steadily looked at throughout the year, so there's not like a, well, it's been 6 months and I guess it's January, I better start thinking about that judging thing. Nope. We make sure that it's a continual process so that there's not this massive backlog.
That kind of reminds me, because I remember being in high school and procrastinating to the last minute. I have since gotten rid of that trait, but are there times when you have judges where that's an issue and you have to either talk to them or replace them?
We've never had to replace a judge for not being engaged. I will say that at the beginning of the process, when someone puts their name in for a judge, there's specific questions in there that really try to get to the point of, hey, this is a lot. This is a lot of work. You're going to be challenged by this. It's a lot of reading. It's required meetings that are consistently monthly, and as we get closer to the end, there are even more meetings, and you've got to free up your schedule for that. That's part of the commitment to doing this. But it ebbs and flows, right? I mean, there may come a point, we can't help it, if a judge gets sick, right? I mean, if we have someone that ends up unfortunately catching COVID and they're down for a couple weeks, then what we do is we just, okay, understand completely. The other judges will keep meeting, and keep having discussions with the caveat of, hey, when this judge feels better and is able to re-engage and focus, then they get to come back in and certainly contribute to the conversation. Never want any judge to feel, due to a personal thing that's come up or a life situation, that we just kind of push them off to the side. We try to be very understanding. We also build in a time at the end, which is why the cutoff is at the end of April. I don't get the actual nominations from the judges until July. So that gives a full 2 months for the judges to truly get through the rest of the stuff that comes in, and it builds in time for people to, things come up you can't plan for, and we try to be understanding as we possibly can. We've, it sometimes it comes down to, okay, it's the last day, everybody's here, everybody feels good. Yep, okay, good. Let's go through this one more time, make sure everybody is in agreement, and we've been very fortunate that we've been able to do that.
Um, with with that, do you see kind of to change gears, but to go back to you actually had a really interesting comment where with the increase in shipping, have you seen a change in physical to PDF or digital content being submitted, like an increase because shipping prices have gone up?
I think that honestly, it's probably about the same percentage. I haven't run the numbers, but gut feel, it's about the same percentage. We've always had an electronic, yeah, we've always had an ebook electronic category to recognize the PDF world that's out there, that's available that you don't get the hard copy for. So we've had that, and so that's always been a part of the judging. But yes, there were absolutely certain times when, in the last couple years, where publishers say, "Hey, we want to submit, we cannot get hard copies to you. The warehouse is backed up, or the printer's behind." And I say, well, they have two options at that point. They can either A, wait for the following year if they truly want to submit it hard copy, or if they want to submit it in PDF, then we'll go ahead and accept it in PDF. But it is actually, and this is a point I don't know that most people understand, you get one bite at the apple, as we refer to it. The product can be judged once. So it's kind of, up to the publisher of, if they're like, hey, we've got this PDF, but we know we're going to print hard copies next year. You have to choose. Do you go this year with the PDFs, or do you say, no, we're going to have the official date of publication for the product as the hard copy date, and we're going to wait and submit that next year? And I've had publishers reach out and contact me and ask me about that, what they should do, and it's truly up to them. I just give them the options that they can choose from, and we're also, willing to correct course and change at the last minute if we need to. I try to be very accommodating. I always want products to have the opportunity to have a chance at getting nominated. So I will generally err on the side of being more inclusive if I can. So we try to be as flexible where we can on those things.
Because yeah, with that, that's actually really interesting where they do just get the one chance, and that I imagine would keep them from just spamming you every year with the same content, or potentially like an indie developer is like, no, I really want this my product to be reviewed again, or
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and I was gonna I'll save it for later, but eventually the question of just like what would something you would like more people to know about Ennies and the judging and submission process. But like I said, we can save that for later. So if something pops up,
Okay.
definitely. One while reviewing kind of the interactions both on what I was seeing online on various forums, how do you have an idea of the demographics of your like audience that interacts with the Ennies?
There, it's very interesting. It is all demographics. It is, and it always surprises me. I just finished shipping for the folks that can't attend the Annie Awards live at Gen Con. After the show, I come back and actually ship them their medals and their certificates. And I just kind of finished wrapping up most of that this week. And I shipped to the Philippines. I shipped to Scotland. I shipped to Belgium, Australia. I mean, it is in California here in the US, and in Canada as well. I mean, it's all over the world. So the demographic is truly global. There is a lot of great work coming out of Europe right now. The Italy creators are amazing. Sweden has got some great stuff going on. The Free League stuff, that they're bringing in. It's neat to see that we're having that kind of response, and the the breadth and depth that is out there in role playing that you don't realize until you start seeing some of these other games come in and truly contribute to the quality of our gaming culture, as it were. So I would say the demographic is pretty much anybody that wants to participate and celebrate gaming.
Yeah. Uh, when you do the nominations and they're done, do you ever see like niche groups come in to like either champion someone that won or loudly voice their discontent with who didn't win?
Well, I will say when it comes to win, not win, I don't see a huge amount of negativity. There's always some, right? I mean, award shows always come with negativity. That's just the nature of award shows, and you have to develop a little bit of a thick skin when it comes to that. But at the same time, we are all volunteers, and we are all people too. And yeah, it's a little rough sometimes when you put your heart and soul and stuff, and you're like, oh, I think we got to the best products, and then where we see it was with the nominations, and it's where well, where is X product? Why the judges really messed up because they didn't nominate X product, and it's like, well, you have to submit to be considered, and that product never got submitted. Choices were made, and that's fine. There's no judgment on submitting to the Ennies or not, but I think that that's part of something that folks don't realize is when they're sending out these criticisms is like, well, there's always room for improvement, but there are just some things that we cannot control.
It's funny that you bring up that you have to submit because that was actually something I went down a Reddit rabbit hole and someone said, "Why wasn't X product nominated?" And the actual maker of that product said, "We didn't even submit, so stop
Right.
stop complaining. Like we're gonna do it next year or something."
Yeah, they're holding back because they know that they right now, and that comes up too. It's like, well, we have our prototype version that we're out there demoing right now, but they know next year is when the big release is going to hit, and that's what they want to submit. It happens. It's surprising how much it does happen, and I have a really great team. There's a team of about 5 of us behind the Ennies. It used to be 3, and now we've kind of expanded a little bit. I have a social media person, and whenever we have these things come up, I have really great people that are able to go out there and at least articulate, well, this is the reason behind this, or this is why. Kind of explaining the rules, explaining the process a little bit, because I think that's one of the challenges is making sure that folks understand if we don't just arbitrarily do things. I mean, we have a really specific set process, and there probably is a reason behind something, other than just the judges had 900 items this year and they had to pick 5.
Yeah.
That's ultimately, unfortunately, that's the answer sometimes.
Well, and even I guess to play not devil's advocate, but just from my experience too, is I've listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of people think that they're doing a great job and they are. But when it comes down to you're doing a great job, but this other person, they took that extra step to just put that cherry on top. So
Yep.
I had to, give it to them, or that's the one I'm going to promote this week or something. Um, which everyone's still like doing a great job, but it's just every a lot of people are doing a great job, and it's always hard.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. It's always hard. I always feel bad. I'm like, I'm sorry. I wish we could nominate 20 things, but
yeah,
we would still be at the award show. So so
yeah.
we have to kind of manage that part too. So it's never I always never look at it as you failed when you
Right,
submit something to the Yankees. You put yourself out there. I mean,
right.
and that's all anyone can ever do.
Are there ever Are there ever times that you all provide feedback to any of the nominees, or if
We
someone
do.
yeah, yeah,
It was too hard. So I every once in a while get contacted by a content creator after the fact and say, "Hey, we submitted this, didn't get a nomination. Can you reach out to the judges and ask for any feedback?" And I do. We'll go back to the judges and see if there's anything in particular that they want. But as a general rule, no. One, that would be yet another added burden on judges, right? That they're already
there's
we're
5 of
already
you.
asking a
Yeah, like you said, 5
lot.
of you, 900 submissions. If everyone wanted it, it'd take
Exactly.
a long time.
E
Yeah,
exactly, but no, so and we also, recognize that 5 people, 5 opinions, And, and it could be that there was really they don't really have any feedback. It was fine. It just, like you said, it didn't have that extra little cherry on top that had it rise to the level of one of the top 5. It was great. It was talked about. It was considered. It just didn't quite get there. We're kind of, yeah, we try not to get involved with the feedback part of it, because in the end, the judges are there to judge to get to a top 5. They're really not reviewing them for purposes of writing reviews of games.
Right, because it at the end of the day, they just nominate them, but then the people are the ones who actually end up
Exactly.
voting on it. So it comes down to how well how well is that nominee promoting or marketing their product then, and letting people know that they are nominated. There's a couple that I saw that were nominated that did zero marketing push on Twitters or social media, and I'm just wondering why. Like, you submitted and you're not telling your fans that you're nominated.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by that. Because yes, I mean it's the two-pronged approach to the awards, right? I mean, the first part is, yes, it's juried. They come up with the top 5, but the second half of the awards is truly the People's Choice Awards of gaming, is the way I refer to it, is because it truly comes down to the fan base at that point, all the gamers in the community, and the more that the publishers and the nominees get the word out, get that this is out there, and hey, they've been nominated, you get more groundswell for folks to go out and not just vote for them, but to look at the other categories and go, hey, I didn't even know this existed, this is awesome, let me vote for this too, or use that list for seeing what else is out there, and exactly. And and that's one of the challenges that we are trying to get better about, is from an any standpoint of promoting as well, and doing more to push on Twitter and on social media of, hey, these products won last year or were nominated last year, and we're going to take a second to say this is what was so cool about it. This is something that's unique about X product. So we're working behind the scenes now to try to come up with some additional ways where we can also promote the Ennies as and the products that are nominated and winning with that. But at the same time, yeah, absolutely, I would highly encourage anyone, if you're like, hey, I'm a fan of, I'll use Trophy the RPG. I'll use that as an example this year. It won silver in best game, I believe. Now, I could be completely wrong on that, but I think that's what it won silver for. But they're all kind of jumble in my head at this point. But that's a game that kind of came out of left field for some people. They'd never heard of it, and it's like, hey, this is interesting, I'm checking this out now. And that's what we want to promote as well, is just vote for your favorites, get your friends to look at it and see what's their favorites, and promote it to get the voting in.
Is there, on a judge side, and then now as directing it, is there any concern when you have like a new indie developer up against, someone on the tier of like Wizards of the Coast or Paizo?
Absolutely. And that's always, and I know that there's a lot of, question of, oh, we should divide them into small content creator versus large content creator. But in the end, you'd be surprised. There is always that concern. I will say that I think that it depends on the group, and it depends on the year and what's up against it. Radiant Citadel, A Journey Through Radiant Citadel was nominated for Best Adventure there. It got silver. It did not get gold. And that's so the while, yes, that is a massive product, it wasn't the one that it didn't have the massive support behind it, or it didn't have the same numbers that I think people assume that WotC would have. Don't and I can't speculate as to why that would be the case, but I'm happy to see that there was another product that actually got nominated or got one gold. So there is opportunity, regardless of size, for folks to be involved and engaged. Another example is Mothership. Kind of came out of nowhere a few years ago and ended up getting, yeah, and ended up getting, I believe, best game and product of the year.
And
And
that's
that
how I
was not
found out about
promoted.
it too. Is it's on my shelf now? Yeah, I'm like, wow.
So I think the
Yeah.
good games kind of, people start to look and see and review and realize, oh yeah, hey, this is interesting. So yes, there is always going to be the massive fan base for certain publishers versus the little guy, but the little guy's still on the
Hmm.
list, and and it's still being considered, and the fans are out there, and the fans vote for what they like best.
Yeah. I know. Again, I think the answer might be kind of similar, but since there are only five of you, and then the 3 to 5 additional staff members, when there's a submission, do you ever take into account any of the political nature of who's submitting it or the content it comes from? Just because I know that there are some creators that try to sneak in products when they've been like banned by the community or they've been outcast. They're like, well, I worked on this project and I'm going to submit it under this other person's name. Not under their name, but their co writer name.
Right.
Do you ever
Well,
take that into account?
as far as from an Ennies standpoint, we don't. We Everyone is allowed to submit. We don't have any rules against it except for one individual, and that we've taken a stand on. But other than that, we try to keep it open, right, and let the product stand for themselves. Let the judges make the call on that. From an Ennies standpoint, from we try not to involve ourselves in the process with regard to the judges considering the products and coming to those decisions. So we very much try to take a hands-off approach and leave it in the judges' hands to determine, based on the merits of the products in front of them, what they want to nominate and for the top 5 nominees.
Yeah. And I think also kind of going back to how large the tabletop space is, it's hard to
Yeah.
keep up keep up to date with all the who did what and who's saying what and so on. So from I can definitely see as like an award ceremony, you have these products in front of you. You generally know or could do a cursory look, but you don't know their extended online presence, and that's really up to
Exactly.
the fans to either let you know or voice their voting again. Like, if they really don't like that product, vote for the other 4 products.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's why that's the beauty of the way that we're set up is, if something is one of the top 5 and there's a part of the community that has an issue with some piece or part of that project, whether it be an individual or content or whatever, then don't vote for it. Vote for the other products instead. Because it truly comes down to fan choice in the end of that point. We try very hard not to insert our opinions into things, because it's truly not our it's not our um it's I don't want to use the term responsibility. It's not in our purview. That is not our role. Is the Ennies. The Ennies is here to provide the vehicle with which to recognize these products, and the people that spend so much blood, sweat, and tears getting them out there and doing all the hard work for it. And it is not we do not want to insert ourselves for any reason into that process. We leave it to the judges, and I cannot possibly know everything out there, and if what where the pitfalls are with certain products or individuals. And I could never keep up with it, nor would I expect my staff with the Ennies. And also, in the end, the Ennies really don't want to be in the business of monitoring that. That comes down to why we have 5 judges, and also, in the end, why we give it to the community to make the
Mhm.
final decision.
With that, how or what are your plans on like keeping the Ennies like up to date and relevant, especially because there are new award shows coming out. Like a new one this year was the Crit Awards, and then a couple others that are mimicking your style. But how do you plan on kind of like keeping everything up to date as the Ennies continue?
Well, first, I will say I encourage all award shows.
Yeah.
I think people need to be recognized. I think that the more recognition, the better things we get. in this industry. I mean, the more quality, the more interesting, different things out there, right? I actually went to the Crit Awards at Gen Con, and so it was really cool to see, and the love fest that was going on there is fantastic. And I know that the Groundbreaker Awards, they've been around a couple years as well too, and I'm very supportive, because again, in the end, this is all about giving a little bit of thanks to folks that are really trying to make a difference and contribute. As far as the Ennies, we've been around 23. We're going into our 24th season. Um, it started as an online, went to a hall. They actually had it in a hallway one year at Gen Con to what it is today. And I think the products themselves, the submissions themselves help keep us relevant, because as the submissions change, we every year go back and we look at what our categories are. And we say, are the categories still relevant? Do they still capture the general spirit of what we're trying to do with that category, with that award? Are we covering, we cannot cover everything in the gaming industry, the RPGs. We just cannot. We get feedback that it's too long now. We have too many categories now. We right now have 22 categories plus publisher. So and it's down. It used to be more. So we do look at it every year. And in fact, we're meeting tomorrow to discuss this coming year and the things. I'll give you the sneak peek of what is on the agenda to talk about, and so you can get the sneak peek. Podcast. The podcast category needs to be renamed, and we know it, and we've known it for a little while. It's just been a matter of what do we call it? What goes into that category? Right now, it's audio visual podcasts. We think we need to probably expand it out into a more of a media content. But at the same time, we also have an online content category for different things. That's more for blogs. That's Linda Cadago won this year gold for her writing work that she did in the online content category, and so I want to make sure that that is still recognized, because that clearly isn't part of the podcast
Hmm.
live. So we're figuring out how we're going to update the podcast category to better reflect the expansion of
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah, that's really hard because even with different podcasts I talk to and why they chose whatever format they did, there's a very big difference between like live streaming, kind of, like the Critical Role, other people who just live stream on Twitch or
Right.
YouTube,
Yeah.
then the edited content portion, which is still a video, and then just the audio only, and how different each of those is, but it still counts as a podcast. Um, so
Exactly.
that's no easy feat. I don't.
Well, and the challenges, and I know that the gut instinct of folks is we'll just have a category for each, and it's like, well, I can't have more
That
categories,
goes back to the other
because
critique, which is you have too many
exactly.
categories.
I have
Yeah.
too many categories, and then but I want, but we need a podcast, and we need an actual play.
Hmm.
It's like, well, I can't. We actually really thought about that a
Hmm.
few years ago and splitting it, and it's like, well, we just can't, because in the end, the ultimate goal of the Ennies is to celebrate tabletop RPGs. And at the same time, we're recognizing there are all these other things that are part of the community, part of the industry, that we want to make sure we are at least recognizing, and that's the podcast, the online content, RPG related products, aids and accessories. I would say a third of our categories are things that actually aren't games. And we've got to be really careful, because at the same time, the judges also aren't experts in one particular area. So we also have to keep it kind of, open to that regard of, well, we don't want it to become too tight of a category, because then the do the judges not feel um, uh, representative enough to judge that category? And we balance that as well.
It sounds like someone should make a just podcast award show that
Yes.
does what we're talking about: edited, live play, actual play, stream, guest stars. Then they can
Yes.
expand to the categories that they want. and do that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and the folks that are knowledgeable in that area
Yeah.
say, "Here, see, James, here's your opportunity to
Yeah.
start your own award show."
If I had
Is
time, I
and
might.
having folks that are well, and
Yeah.
there's the rub,
Yeah.
right? Is folks that are truly knowledgeable in that space,
Right.
that are the experts in that space, take it, run with it. Contact me. I will encourage you. I will help, give my knowledge of what I know about running award shows in this industry because I would love to see that. There was one a long time ago, and I don't think it didn't last very long, but there was a podcast awards at one point in time, and I think there are a couple more out there that are being talked about right now, that are kind of smaller scale, but I'm hoping they grow because I would love to see more recognition in those areas. Unfortunately, it's just not something we have the capacity to expand out and really be able to go to all the different areas of that field.
I want to say thank you for watching. This is the mid-interview break. Just a reminder, if you like these kinds of interviews, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. That really helps us out over here. And if you are a tabletop podcast creator, artist, or other, and would like to be on the show, drop a link in the comments below. Or if you think I should interview a podcast, comment below and I will check them out. If you want to see any of the additional content I make, then go ahead, check out the Patreon link that I'll have in the description below. Enough of this break, let's get back to the show. How, this might be a bigger question, but how do you keep the Ennies going for as long as they have? Because while doing research, there have definitely been other award shows that popped up for a few years, or maybe they just did 1 year and then stopped. How do you keep that momentum going?
I think in the end, everyone is trying to do the best they can to come up with the best nominations they can in the categories. And it's very validating to see folks discover a game for the first time and then a couple months later come back and say, "Oh my god, I didn't even know this existed before the Ennies and my family's playing it all the time. We love this." And that is what sustains us. That is what keeps us relevant is that people find value in us. They find value in the validation that we're giving to creators and encouraging those creators to continue. I think that I would encourage anyone to watch the second half of the Ennies this year and listen to Mark Diaz Truman when he accepts one of his awards because he talks about where he was 10 years ago and just being starting up and never dreaming where he would get with Magpie and with Avatar, and it's those type of things that really drive home that we're doing a good thing here by encouraging small publishers and seeing how they grow over time and going back and looking at 4 or 5 years ago when they get their first nomination and then they continue to grow. And I'm not saying that the Ennies are the reasons they're successful. I'm saying that maybe just maybe we gave them that little push of encouragement that got them to keep pushing for something new. And if nothing else, it gave them a little warm fuzzy that they were appreciated. And I think that for that, if we maintain that as our focus as an award show, then we can sustain because everyone I think wants to give thanks and wants to recognize and show we love this industry. We want to support this industry, and we want to say thank you. The only way that we can, beyond buying the products, right, is to support them through awards and recognition.
Yeah, that's definitely something that throughout my life has always been interesting with awards, um, because it does kind of create a bar where it's like I create if I'm gonna submit something, I know I got to hit this bar before I even submit it. I'm sure there are other people that just will throw spaghetti at the wall and say I'm gonna submit that. Um, but it is definitely something that's like once you win that award, it does kind of push you to keep making that content or that quality or yeah, quality of content. What have there been any reoccurring trends that you see happen from year to year, or like was there a specific trend you saw this year that might have been different from previous years when judging the awards?
Um, Let's see. I don't know that I saw a trend this year. I will say that I think that what's been real interesting is, and not just in a year, but over the last couple, 2, 3 years, is the trend in solo RPGs. That I think with COVID happening and with Thousand Year Old Vampire, really kind of hit zeitgeist of the moment, with that, and the judges at the time when that was submitted caught it as well and nominated it, and of course it won. But it was also, it hit mainstream. I mean, it was in the New York Times, and it just was that moment. So I would say that that is something that I have seen, and of course that was kind of the first very popular one. I'm sure it wasn't the first solo RPG, but it was the one that really hit big, in popularity. Since then, we have seen more and more solo RPGs come through. I know this year, one of our judges, Chris Gath, his judge's pick was, I think it's 1680 AM, which is a solo RPG at a radio station. And he's like, it's not his, and it's a Cthulhu horror type thing. But he says that normally I would never play solo RPGs. It's really not my thing. But having gone through COVID and having time, he appreciated the efforts and what he was able to do with that from a solo perspective. So I would say that that's an interesting trend. We've seen, trends kind of come and go. We had a lot of little one-off scenarios. A Mork Borg, that's another trend. There was Mork Borg came in and was massively popular. Still is, and now we've got a lot of other little Mork Borg esque things, right? That are now being through. I think Pirate Borg was submitted this year. So so you see a product that does really well, and then you'll see others that take that and expand it, or do something slightly different with it because their gaming group got a hold of the original maybe and said, you know what, I kind of like this, but what if we did X with it, and take off with it. So those are always kind of things that we see as trends, as something will kind of pop up at the moment, and then you'll see some others come after it that, do something similar or kind of push that genre, as it were,
Yeah.
which is always kind of a fun thing to see happen.
Do you ever I'm not sure how someone would do this, but do you ever see someone try and, like, game the Ennies system and either, like, just peppering you with tons of submissions, but various things, like, "Here's my PDF, here's my podcast, here's my something else." Do you ever see people try and game the Ennies?
Well, I will say there are some folks that do a lot of different things in the industry, and so they might have their hands in 5 different genres of the RPG world, and they'll submit all of them. Perfectly acceptable. That's those are all things they're working on. It's very difficult to game a system where you got to get through 5 people, and those 5 people are pretty much virtual strangers to each other, a lot of the times, because the way that the judging works is that, or the judges panel work, is they're nominated and voted in, as well. So you self nominate to become an Ennies judge. You have to fill out the form and assign everything, agreeing that you'll do all the work and such. And then they're voted in just like the products in July when we have voting for who's going to win. We also have who's going to be the next 5 people to be the judging panel. And that panel, and judges are only allowed to sit 2 consecutive years. And then we force them to take a year off. One, we want them their mental state to heal, and we want them to have a break. Um, and because it can be kind of addicting. It is really fun to find all kinds of new interesting things you never knew existed. But at the same time, we also want to get new blood and fresh eyes on things. So we do have that 2 year limit. And then they have to take a year off. And then some folks might come back or realize, you know what, that was so much time. I'm good. I've done 2 terms. I'm happy. Or they do 1 term and life happens and they realize they can't keep it up. But those are voted on too by the fans. I mean, the folks get in through voting. And now you've got 5 folks that were voted in through the fans that now have the honor and task of going through and finding those 5 nominees. So even if someone were trying to game the system, it would be very difficult to get through the judges. And then then if somehow someone was able to get through the nomination, then they now have a at-large voting scale to try to get through for, the win as well. So, I will say that it is not something that I have seen done. I don't even know that I've actually seen it done unsuccessfully.
Mm.
It's just I think that it would be quite a challenge.
Yeah.
We'll just put it that
Yeah,
way.
to somehow stand out enough that the judges pick all 5 judges pick you or agree, and then to then have everyone vote for you would be a hurdle, um,
The
to
best
try
way to
and do it.
game the
Yeah.
system is to have the best game.
Yeah, yeah, do the work. Do your work
Do the work.
first.
That's the best. That's so much less work than
Yeah,
trying to game a system, but gamers are gonna game, right?
yeah,
But but honestly, just put that effort and energy into in making whatever you're doing better. That'll always serve you well.
yeah. Have there been any hurdles, or I should rephrase it, what are, like, some of the smaller hurdles yearly that you have with the Ennies, and what are some of the bigger hurdles that are just either continuing or from year to year?
Smaller hurdles are just getting 5 individuals, coordinated schedules. We this year have this year's panel of judges and last year's. We're all in the U.S. So time zones we were only set to 3 time zones. We have had 5 time zones in the past with the judges in Australia and Turkey, and Canada, and that makes it even more challenging because we don't limit location for our judges. It can truly be anywhere as long as they are able to read and communicate in English. That is the one requirement we have. Is that So that is always that's one of those micro challenges of just figuring out what's the best time and day for everyone to meet, to be able to focus. And the new judges are doing that right now. They're kind of coming to kind of negotiation about what day they're going to meet once a month and setting that up. Other micro things is just the planning of the show, making sure that we have the hosts in place and that we're all set there. We try every year to make sure we upgrade the show a little bit. We've now live stream it. We've done that for a few years now, and we finally at a point where we're in the same room and because with COVID we were kind of bounced all over. One year we had it literally in my kitchen, because we didn't Gen Con didn't happen on that year. So so we had green screens and that was a challenge. But we get a little the quality is not great for live streaming because we're in this giant massive hall. It's not built for live streaming. It's a beautiful place to have an award show in person. But so we are upgrading tools and all the technology we can there. So that those are all little micro things that are never perfect, and I apologize to everyone that watches it online, although they get the benefit of the videos being perfect because in the room, we always have problems with playing the video with the sound and making sure everything works right there. We get better every year, I will just put it that way, and we try really hard, but we recognize we're not there yet, but we get better. Bigger things, Awards are expensive. Award shows are very expensive to run. We are all volunteers. This is not anything so we have to manage funding. We are very fortunate to have Gen Con as a partner, and they supply us a gorgeous location, and we have been the award show with them for 20 odd years at this point. So all I think but the first couple have been at Gen Con. And so that will continue. So it's beautiful to have that partnership. We also have a partnership with Campaign Coins. They make absolutely gorgeous accessories. They make our medals for us. And when we changed our logo at our 20th anniversary, they came in with a brand new medal. And they're just outstanding. And so they supply us with those medals. So because in the past it would just be a certificate the individuals would get, but we've been able to upgrade there. But finances are always a challenge. We actually have someone that is the business manager for the Ennies, and we're working hard to come up with partners and sponsors to help us so we can finance and continue to provide the same level of quality and better quality of the award show moving forward.
Yeah. What, I guess, w just this is me more as like a trying to produce something, but what are your things that
Yeah,
you look for in sponsors? Like if someone was to come to you and say, "Hey, I am," we'll just say Wormwood Gaming because they're big and everyone
sure.
likes them for one reason or another. Wormwood comes to you and is like, "Hey, we want to help promote the Ennies this year. What do you need? Like,
Awesome.
what would be something that like you offer and expect from them?"
Absolutely. Well, we since we are a horde show, we really don't have things we can give them, right? Tangible things. But we do have some ways we help. We have set up. We do have sponsor levels, and based on that sponsor levels, we kind of embed them through the advertising, through the live stream show, and we so that whenever you see the beginning of the show, you'll see our sponsors at the bottom. Those logos, those are for our big sponsors. We also have our tables at the front. There are 8 tables at the front of the show. They are round tables. The rest of the room is set up through a stadium seating situation, but there are 8 round tables up front. And if you are a sponsor, then you get one of those upfront tables. So you get to, so it's a little bit of a nicer, fancier experience. We also promote them um, through our social media feeds. We make sure that if we can, if there's a way, for example, I know this year we also have what we call a dream dates, which are we auction off some of this. See, we'll have a spot. We'll have someone that couldn't be a sponsor, but they want to sponsor a dream date, and we'll give them part of the table, and we auction off a seat at that table with them. For example, Pelgrane Press did it this year. They were multiple nominated for Swords of the Serpentine, and I know that one of the authors, Kevin Culp, was come sit with me, come be my date, and promoting it that way. And so they get to sit up front, and an individual gets to sit with them as they go through the awards show. So that's something we can offer for individuals that want to sponsor. I will say what we try. We are not where we can just turn down sponsorships, but we do try to find sponsors that we can promote them. I know we're already in talks with actually a restaurant in Indianapolis for next year, that want to be a sponsor for us. We've never had but they are not someone that's going to submit anything to be judged. But so it makes for a really nice sponsorship. We can promote them. There's been talk of, well, let's have them bring food to the Ennies. And I'm like, no,
That's
but
that's a logistical
how about
nightmare. I
no?
used to do
Yeah.
catering. That's a logistical nightmare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Crown probably would not be thrilled with me.
Yeah.
But some things like that that we can offer them exposure, we can offer them signage, we can promote them because we do have a booth in the hall, the vendors hall, the dealers hall, the exhibitor hall. We do have a booth in there, and then that booth, we just everything in that booth is the nominated products that people can come by, pick up, flip through. We can tell them where they're located if they're for sale at Gen Con, and we promote that way, and we can promote our sponsors as well through that. So that's kind of what we look for. We try to look for people that are part of the hobby, but maybe not necessarily someone that would submit to be judged. Those would be our preference, of course, because we never want anyone to think that, oh, a publisher has sponsored the Ennies. They're one of our big sponsors. Well, they get special treatment. I will say definitively they do not. In fact, the judges don't have really, unless they're paying real close attention, they don't even know when we get sponsors. And I waited. We had one this year, and I knew they were going to get nominated based on the talks that were going on with the judges at the time, at the end, toward the end of June. And they contacted, hey, we love the Ennies. We want to be at a table. We want to sponsor. We want to do what we can to help. And I said, okay. We went through the deal. Judges had no idea. And I waited to announce until after the judges had solidified their picks and everything was in stone. So there's no, because I saw the conversation out on one of the message boards. I think about, wow, that's suspicious. Like, well, actually, it's really not. The judges had no idea, and publishers don't have any contact with the judges other than shipping them things. They don't have email communications. In fact, it's prohibited to have any kind of um, communications that way. So we try really hard to keep it separated, but overall, we've been very fortunate that we have individuals and groups in the community that see the value in the Annie Awards and want to help
Mhm.
us continue to make them meaningful and valuable.
Yeah. My my one again, when there's like ideas, my one thing for the Ennies in like a restaurant, if they can't sell their product because it's food, they can also do like Gen Con specific coupons or deals. So it's like
Yep.
if you can't sell your food, we just give us, coupons, little booklets, something that we can hand out to attendees to hopefully go to your restaurant, even if because coupons are super cheap. It's like 10 cents per each one, whatever. Someone comes to your restaurant, they get 10-15% off. Boom, there you go. Has a little map
And
on the
that's what
back of
we're
where to get it. Yeah.
Yep, that's what we're just discussing with them of how we're gonna do it, and maybe we're gonna do some raffles
Hmm.
for gift cards and things like that,
Yep.
so that makes it worth their while and also helps us out. So yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly where we're gonna go with
Yeah,
it.
that's always great because yeah, raffles for gift cards if they're free, that automatically means they have to spend it at the restaurant. That gets them in the door. Uh,
Exactly.
that's not the podcast we're on.
But it's
It
interesting
is
if you start
interesting.
thinking about things,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because I used to help small businesses for an art walk market their businesses outside of the art walk. So it's like, hey, have raffles, have coupons, have thing like you just need to get them in the door, and then from there, they spend an extra $5 here or there. There you go, the extra $5.
That's right. We
Something
may or may not have been giving away free coupons for fries at our booth this year for them.
exactly, yeah.
It's,
And that goes for anyone who makes stuff. Think of coupons and stuff, and then just get them in the
Right.
door. Um, but with that, it's been about an hour. But what is I know? Oh, what was the question? I forget now. I already forgot the question because I was having fun. But what's something that you're striving for the Ennies um, upcoming? It sounds like we've already touched on it a little bit, but what's something that like you personally really want to have happen for the Ennies like next year or in the coming future?
Okay. So yes, I have a target of the 25th anniversary of the Ennies in a year. The 2025 will be the 25th anniversary. The 20th anniversary, we were going to do a big celebration, and that was the year that wasn't. It was all done online. We didn't have it, so we for the 25th, we're gonna try to make it big. We're looking at having cake at the show, doing some additional things, and I will say one of the things that I personally want to do is resurrect something that was originally done with the Ennies, but hasn't been done in probably 15 years, and that's have a Hall of Fame. And that's we really feel that there's that's an area we want to do. I mean, the Ennies have been around 23 years at this point, but RPGs have been around a heck of a lot longer than that. And so we want to recognize the forefathers, as it were, of gaming, and how we're going to do that. Um, we think we're solidifying how we're going to do it to make it sustainable, and also make sure that it's about the products and that impacted the RPG industry, and not necessarily anything else, so that if and because I think the challenge, and I'm gonna call it the Dahl effect. You've got Ronald Dahl, the beloved writer of children's information or children's stories, who now we know was perhaps not the most moral of individuals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so knowing that, and it's if we sustain, right, and we've already had this where awards are given, and 20 years later find out that maybe individuals aren't as great as we once thought, right? So how do we do that? How do we to sustain and not fall into traps of that as well? And what do we do with that? And we think we have a solution of how we're going to do it, to make sure that one, it is sustainable, and that it seems reasonable and fair, and but we're also recognizing those that came before us, that we are now standing on top of, right? So that is the having a legit Hall of Fame that we can say, hey, we want to recognize these products, like, that have been out there that everyone knows about, particularly with the explosion of OSR and I would say the resurgence, but I think we're on our second resurgence of OSR at this point. So that is an area that is kind of near and dear that we're working toward, that I'm hoping maybe we might start this year, but really come out with a bang in the following year for the 25th anniversary. And I honestly just continue to do what we can to highlight all the great work being done out there and recognize the individuals that are contributing to that.
That sounds great, because it also reminds me of, um, like, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too, where, it takes some years for you to be entered into it, but it still counts,
It's
and it is tricky because since that one is an example a lot of people would know, things come out about musicians all the time, and
yes.
and how do you walk that tightrope of, yes, we wanna acknowledge what they did for the music industry, but we also don't wanna disregard what they did with their personal life. Um, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. It is, and I don't wanna be in the business of removing awards postmortem either. That's always a very tricky thing because, uh, I don't wanna be the arbiter of that, right? And I don't wanna insert myself into what the will of the people at that moment in time had with regard to providing awards, and, just knowing moving forward, well, yeah, at the time that person or was considered a good egg, and now they're not, and what now, and we know that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't negate the fact that they did do something right at one point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, we all use their dice mechanic system now, or their, or augmented reality virtual something, in 50 years in the future. I remember my question, which was,
Okay.
um, what is something you wish more people knew about the Ennies that they probably don't know?
That it is fan based.
Yeah.
That there isn't 4 people sitting in a room that just look at everything and go, "Well, I like that one. Let's nominate that." No, it's really
Mhm.
is 5 people, blood, sweat, and tears, duking it out, to get to what they like, and an agreement on,
Mm.
to get to the nomination part of it, and those individuals are voted in too. It's not there's no secrets. There's no group out there that's pushing strings or
Yeah.
picking their favorites. It truly is judge based, and we're going to keep it that way. And that would be the first thing I want people to understand, is that's how we come to getting to the nominees,
Mhm.
is through that
Yeah.
process.
Um, well, thank you for watching. I had a blast interviewing Stacy about the Ennies and how they work. If you think I missed any questions, drop them in the comments below. I look forward to interviewing her again in the future and learning more about running an award show and everything that entails. Go ahead and check out other videos on this channel and keep an eye out for my next interview. And as always, be kind and roll well.